Well, good morning. Today is Good Friday, the day that we remember when Jesus was crucified, when he died on the cross for our sins. And if you'll remember, during the Christmas season, we had crosses across Smith County, reminding us that Jesus came for a very specific purpose. And that specific purpose was to die on the cross for our sins. Today, as we remember the cross, as we remember what Jesus did for us, we're going to go and we're going to see several places that we visited while we were in Jerusalem, and several places that remind us of this specific day when Jesus died for us.
In the Gospel of Mark, chapters 14 and 15, we find the trial and crucifixion of Jesus of Nazareth. As we see him during the week, he's been back and forth to Bethany several times, staying at the home of Lazarus, Mary, and Martha. The Garden of Gethsemane and the Mount of Olives are on the way, and so as he's traveled, he's passed by several times. Well, on that Thursday night, he goes to the Garden of Gethsemane after supper, and while he's there, he prays in the garden. He opens his soul before God and asks if the cup could be removed. And there in the garden, he sweats as if it were great drops of blood among the olive trees. Then Judas comes with soldiers, and they take Jesus and they bind him. That's where Peter pulls out his sword and swings it to defend Jesus. But then Jesus says, "Put your sword away and do not live by the sword." Then the soldiers and Judas take Jesus to the home of Annas, and then from there they go to the home of Caiaphas. Then they go over to Herod's palace, then over to before Pilate, and then finally Jesus is taken to be crucified. We see him being led from the garden to Caiaphas's house. That's where the first trial takes place. Caiaphas's house is just on the other side of the Kidron Valley, and Jesus is led up these steps as he is coming to Caiaphas's house for the trial. Once he's at his house, then Jesus is lowered into a holding cell, a holding room, through a hole in the ceiling. And as Jesus is lowered down, he's held there until the trial. The Sanhedrin convenes, and then Jesus is put on trial. While he's put on trial, Peter's standing outside in the courtyard, and 3 times people say to Peter, "We believe you were with him." But Peter denies it. Jesus is being tried. As he's tried by the high priest, found guilty. Tried by the Sanhedrin, found guilty. Tried by Pilate, and not found guilty. In fact, Pilate said several times, "I found nothing to convict this man of. He's done nothing wrong." He sends him to Herod. Then Herod sends him back to Pilate. And finally, Pilate agrees to convict Jesus, and Jesus is led to the cross. In fact, he's led through the streets carrying his cross. He's carrying his cross down a road called the Via Dolorosa. It's a narrow road. It's a narrow passageway through the streets. And as Jesus goes, he is weary, and he falls under the weight of the cross. He falls under the weight, and Simon of Cyrene is enlisted to carry the cross of Jesus to the hill called Calvary. As Jesus comes to the hill called Calvary, also known as the Hill of the Skull, and in this picture you see an older picture where the skull is there in the middle of the picture, very, very prevalent. And Jesus is nailed to the cross between 2 thieves. And as he's there dying, he speaks several words. He says, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?" He says, "Today you'll be with me in paradise." He says, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." He said to his mother, "Mother, behold your son." And to the disciple John, "Behold your mother." And he says to the thief on the cross, Today you'll be with me in paradise. The most important words he says are the words, it is finished. Jesus paid the price for our sins. Then Jesus dies. About 3 p.m, they take him and they wrap his body and they place his body in a tomb on Friday and then Saturday. And we know on that glorious morning on Sunday, when the angel appears to the women at the tomb and says, he is not here, for he is risen. And they enter in and they see the tomb is empty. But on this Good Friday, we remember that Jesus paid the price for our sins. He paid the price. He bore the cross. He suffered the shame for you and for me.
Jesus died my soul to save. My lips shall still repeat, Jesus paid it all to him I owe. Sin had left a crimson stain, he washed it white as
God bless you today as you celebrate this Good Friday, as you remember what Jesus did for us on the cross, and as we always keep in the back of our mind, it's Friday, but Sunday's coming. God bless you. See you Sunday at the Digital Church service.